Hey everybody, welcome to our devotional for today. Listen, what I'd like to do the next several days is think about the resurrection of Jesus. You know, this coming Sunday is Easter, and our world focuses in on the resurrection. And I am so glad that this happens every year. Now, one of the really cool things about being a Christian is every Sunday we're thinking about celebrating, just reveling in the fact that Jesus Christ came out of the tomb alive on the third day. So I just want to talk a little bit, and if you've got a Bible, would you get it and would you turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 15? There's a lot of talk in this chapter about resurrection. Paul is writing the church in Corinth, and he spends a lot of time talking about how fundamental, how central the resurrection is to our faith. As a matter of fact, if you've got your Bible open to 1 Corinthians 15, jump down to verse 12, and let's read 12, 13, and 14. So Paul says, "But if it is preached that Christ has been raised from the dead, how can some of you say there is no resurrection of the dead? We preach that Christ came out of the tomb alive." Now look at verse 13. "If there is no resurrection of the dead, then not even Christ has been raised." Well, that makes sense. No resurrection, that would include Christ. So he did not come out of the tomb alive. Now look at verse 14. "And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching," look at this language, "is useless, and so is your faith." Now I want you to look again at verse 14. If Christ has not been raised, if there is no resurrection, two things. Number one, our preaching is absolutely worthless, and so is your faith in Jesus Christ. I remember someone saying long ago that you could destroy Christianity with one act. All you'd have to do is produce the dead body of Jesus Christ. And once you do that, it's over. There is no Christianity. There is no faith. There's nothing, because it's all a hoax. It's all a lie. Everything about your faith and my faith hinges on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Makes sense, doesn't it? Because if he wasn't raised from the dead, then there's nothing to follow. There's nothing except, well, you had a good man and a good teacher, but that's it. There's no difference from any other good man or good teacher that lived and died. Now, in the remainder of our time in this devotional, I want to take you through what are probably four of the most common critiques of the resurrection. In other words, ideas that are given to explain away the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And remember, nothing has been scrutinized more in history than the resurrection of Jesus. Again, it's real simple. All you've got to do is disprove the resurrection, produce a body, disprove that he came out of the tomb alive, and you have absolutely destroyed Christianity. So let me give you four of the most popular or common arguments against the resurrection. You may want to jot these down. Here they are. Number one, that the disciples went to the wrong tomb. You read in the Gospels about Peter and John running to the tomb, and John actually outran Peter. He was a little bit younger than Peter. And the women, including Jesus' mother, came to the tomb. Well, the theory is the tomb was empty because they went to the wrong tomb. But think about it. We know it was a tomb that belonged to Joseph of Arimathea. Do we really believe that the disciples, the closest followers of Jesus, do we really believe that his own family, flesh and blood, didn't know the right tomb in which he was buried? That they went to the wrong tomb? But that's one theory. A second is, Jesus really didn't die on the cross. Yes, he was injured deeply, but they took his body off the cross, laid him in a tomb, and he resuscitated and he left the tomb. Well, real quickly, let me just simply say this. The Romans were experts at death. Read about the crucifixion. There's no way Jesus didn't die on that cross. And when the body was prepared for burial, pounds and pounds of spices would be laid on that body. If he were just between life and death, just the preparation of his body would have killed him. And then you're saying that he resuscitated enough from a crucifixion that he was strong enough to roll the stone away and walk out. I don't think so. But that theory has been advanced through the years to disprove the resurrection. A third is the hallucination theory, and that is that people just thought that they saw the risen Christ. Again, when you read the Gospels, you read that Jesus appeared to the disciples. And in this chapter that we're in today, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, if you look at verse 6, it talks about the different people that Jesus appeared to after the resurrection, and that includes a group at one time of 500 people. Now, I point that out simply to say that means that 500 people simultaneously hallucinated that they were seeing the risen Christ. The hallucination theory, that all these people simply thought, because they were so emotionally undone by the crucifixion, they simply thought that it was the risen Lord. Well, finally, the fourth is what I might just call the hoax theory, that the disciples got together and Jesus had been crucified, he died, the movement was over, but they wanted to perpetrate a hoax on the world. And so they got together and said, let's tell everybody Jesus is still alive, but we know he's not. But let's tell everybody that he's still alive. Well, here's my response, and I'll be honest with you. In my estimation, this is the strongest proof of the resurrection. Now again, you may think of another, but for me personally, this is the single strongest evidence that the resurrection actually occurred. And that is that these disciples and millions of other people have been willing and have in fact died because they believe Jesus Christ came out of that tomb alive. Let me tell you something. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to die for a hoax. I might do several things to keep a hoax going, but I am not going to give my life for a hoax. And of these original disciples, all of them, with the exception of John, died a violent death. Why? Because Jesus came out of the tomb alive on the third day, and they believed it to the point that they were willing to give their lives. The resurrection. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Thank you.